Anytime we get the Cowboys and Eagles to share a football field, we know that there will be some fireworks. Remember what happened in week one? Yeah, we got drama from the very start of that game. So today for round two, we've got playoff stakes and potential history making. So that means that we need a boots on the ground report, which is why we welcome in our Cowboys reporter, Garrett Podell. I mentioned the history. Dak Prescott is closing in on Tony Romo's record for the most passing yards in Cowboys history. He is a $160 shy of that very large number I will not read off. So what would it mean for him to do it today against the Eagles?
Hey, Emily, great to be here with you from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. And Dak said he'd be humbled to break this record. And he said it's kind of funny that when he was a rookie in the 2016 season, 10 seasons ago, can't believe it's been that long, and he won Rookie of the Year and the Cowboys were the 1 seed. They won 13 games. He said, I was arrogant enough to think, yeah, I would break all the franchise records. But he said now looking back on it, he's really kind of grateful for all the guys who he credits for being a part of it, like CeeDee Lamb, wide receivers like Amari Cooper, who was there early on in his career, Michael Gallup, Jason Witten, current Dallas Cowboys tight end Jake Ferguson. And he said it's one of those records that, he's excited to break. But honestly, the record that he holds in the utmost regard is that completion percentage number you see there, 67.1%, because he said he tries to really manage the game. And he said, game manager, that's looked as a pejorative term for quarterbacks. But for him, he views that as really being efficient and keeping the offense moving. So that's the record that he views as the most important. But he's excited to break Tony Romo's record today.
I'm going to say that he'll still be pretty excited if he's able to accomplish that feat. He could join Patrick Mahomes as the only active quarterbacks to hold the team's current all-time yards record. So I'd say that's a pretty big deal. But somebody that's going to be in his way of that record will be Jalen Carter on the other side. They'll see each other for the first time since Carter's infamous spit on the first snap of the season opener. So what do you anticipate that, let's call it a reunion, Garrett, will be like?
I think it's going to be really interesting. I asked Dak Prescott, what are you going to say to Jalen Carter when you see him for the first time since that spit? And he looked at me and laughed and said, depends what he says, but probably something friendly. He said, I'm going to try and get on his good side. And, the impact that Jalen Carter has playing today is tremendous because the Eagles' defensive expected points added per play when Carter's on the field is 0.16, and that would be the highest or best for a defense in the NFL when he's on the field. When he's off the field, negative 0.16, that would make them the 31st ranked defense, second worst in football. So his impact for Philadelphia is tremendous. And Dak said, from a line of scrimmage perspective, he's going to, slide protections toward Jalen Carter. And that's wherever Carter is, that's really going to be a big part of his pre-snap diagnosis of the Philadelphia defense before he snaps the football.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're nice to him. He's still going to wreak havoc because that is his job and he does it well. But some things, though, have changed for the Cowboys defense since that week one game. They have added defensive tackle Quinnen Williams and linebacker DeMarvion Overshown is back. So how can they maybe help shut down Hurts' scrambling ability?
Yeah, that's kind of the X factor and what I think is really going to decide this game because all things were essentially equal in that week one matchup. Saquon Barkley was held to just 3.3 yards per carry, but it was Hurts scrambling. He had 9 scrambles, the second most in a game in his career, for 63 rushing yards off those scrambles, the 4th most scramble yards in a game of his career. And both of his rushing touchdowns were off of scrambles, 7 rushing first downs, which is Hurts' season high this year. 5 of them were on third downs. That was really the game. And Quinnen Williams, who they've added at the trade deadline, the All-Pro from the New York Jets, his run stop rate, which is stopping runs within the first 3 yards and shedding your blocker at the beginning of a run, is 47%. That's the best in the NFL among defensive tackles per Next Gen Stats. So he'll make a big impact. As will the explosive Overshown, who, when Micah Parsons was on this team, his jaw dropped when we saw Overshown chase down Deshaun Watson in week one last year for a 4th and 6 sack, in which Overshown beat Parsons to the quarterback. That doesn't really happen for Parsons to get beat to a quarterback off the line of scrimmage. And so and when I asked Overshown about it, he said, yeah, that was really the difference. And he said, I'm pretty sure we're going to be a lot tighter on it here this week.
Love to hear that. As for the Cowboys offense, you assume that CeeDee Lamb wants to make up for all those drops back in week one, but Pickens really just wants to keep on keeping on because he had a great performance last week. So what can we expect on that side of the ball for Dallas?
Yeah, Emily, I asked head coach Brian Schottenheimer about the drops and if he's addressed that with CeeDee Lamb this week. And he looked at me and said, hey, Garrett, that's the first time I've really thought about it this week when you brought it up. And so that's of zero concern to them. And that conversation I had with Brian Schottenheimer was on a Friday. So that was, a few days before this game. They're not concerned about it at all. And as for George Pickens, I mean, they're absolutely embracing him here, literally and metaphorically, in Dallas. After CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens got in trouble and missed the first series against Las Vegas last week, when CeeDee Lamb scored on the next couple of drives, Brian Schottenheimer literally ran up and hugged both Pickens and Lamb, who were sitting next to each other on the bench. And I asked Pickens after practice on Thursday, have you ever had an NFL head coach come up to you and give you a hug in the game? And he looked at me and said, no, I can't say that that's happened. He said maybe high school, maybe college, but really the vibes and just because Pickens is kind of known for being an explosive personality. I mean, you see it when he launched himself into the goalpost when he scored his touchdown against the Raiders last week. They're really embracing him here. And CeeDee Lamb said, yeah, I think we're absolutely kind of making him feel more welcome than he was in Pittsburgh. And that's really caused Pickens to ball out. It's 908 yards, second most in football, and the most in any player's first 10 games as a Cowboy, surpassing the record that Amari Cooper used to have. So they're loving it here, Pickens and Lamb, and everything that's going well for the Dallas offense.
They're embracing him literally and figuratively, but it's not just that great connection on the field between Pickens and his quarterback. So what does that relationship look like in that building and beyond?
Yeah, I think what's been really important is both Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Brian Schottenheimer, everyone has spent a lot of time with Pickens off the field. I mean, Dak Prescott, he takes all of the wide receivers, tight ends to a different kind of retreat each year to throw the football around in the summer, really build chemistry. And they went out to, I believe, Georgia this past year, and that's where Pickens played college football. But they've really just made a really big effort embracing all sides of him and making him feel comfortable. And you'll see Pickens walking around the locker room talking to defensive teammates, offensive teammates. So kind of the locker room pariah that he was made out to be in Pittsburgh just hasn't come to fruition at all. Everyone's really excited and thrilled about the George Pickens experience. And on Tuesday, Brian Schottenheimer said, sign me up. I would love to have George Pickens back here long term. He's in the last year of his rookie deal. And Pickens said, yeah, I would absolutely love to be back, but that's Jerry Jones' call.
It certainly is. Garrett, thank you so much. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the press box food. Very jealous of that. Hey, make sure that you are tuning in to CBS Sports HQ for game day recap. After it's all said and done, these guys will get you all caught up on the action. Tune in Sundays at 8:20 Eastern right here on HQ.